What up, folks? SEC Connect, man. If you're in this room, like, comment, subscribe, share. There is Chris with a K. He's in late as usual, but that's my dog.
EP time, man. It be your own people, man.
I'm on baby time now. You know what I'm
You
saying?
on baby time. We'll give you that. We give you that. You on baby time right now.
Ooh.
But man, like, comment, subscribe. If you're in here, folks, press the like. Doesn't cost anything. Wipe your feet before you come in our house. Press that like button. Today, folks, man, we got a lot for you guys today. We want to talk about the Texas A&M offensive identity crisis. Some of the comments made by Bobby Petrino in his latest press conference. We're going to talk about A&M's NIL deal now coming to an end. That's going to be a very interesting thing to talk about as well. SEC recruiting battles. There's a guy named Colin Simmons. I don't know if you heard about him. Number one defensive edge here in the country, down to Texas, LSU, and Miami. Everybody knows it's going to be an SEC battle. I think Miami was just thrown in there just to be thrown in there for a top three. This is really a Texas versus LSU battle, and he is committing tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central time. And then the third topic, folks, we're going to talk about the top 25, the preseason top 25, and give our thoughts on, who we think is rated too high, who's too low, whatever. But folks, what's going on, fellas?
Not much, man. Not much.
Right. I see Surfer Boy is here in the comments representing the Georgia Bulldogs. So
Hey.
what's going on, brother? What's going on? We've missed you. So good to see you here.
Oh man, we ain't trying to hear that, Surfer Boy. But folks, let's go ahead and get into it, man. Let's add this to the scene. We got a little clip here from Bobby Petrino during his press conference, and we're going to go ahead and press play on that.
I've read or heard, or I've had people send me things about, you and Coach Fisher getting along, that's not really how it works, okay? Coach is the boss, all right? My job is to try to keep him happy and make sure that everything works, the way he wants it to work. I understand that more than probably anybody because of the number of years that I've been the head coach. But it's been a lot of fun, Coach is a ball coach, and the ability to go in the meeting room and watch video and listen to his philosophies and his techniques and fundamentals. I've improved a lot as a coach, and my knowledge has improved a lot as a coach just in the short time that I've been here.
Wow.
We'll stay on that left side and go.
Wow. Guys, what do you think about that?
I'll go ahead and jump in, just kind of break the ice. So look, it's a lot. It's a lot to kind of actually assess, because you're sitting there saying that, one, nobody with, let's just be honest, nobody with that type of resume as Bobby Petrino, with some of the things that he's been able to do as a coach in this game with, we talked about Arkansas, his Arkansas days. We talked about, obviously, the Heisman that he had with Lamar Jackson that season. So, the guy knows offense. So it does say a lot. It speaks volumes that he's having to basically voice his opinions like that. And to me, there's trouble in paradise. I don't know. I don't know how you don't listen to that and don't think there's already trouble in paradise already. I don't think it's to the level of nuclear, but we will see. How is this offense going to shape out? This makes me feel like we could see an early exit for Bobby Petrino, not during the season, but sometime after the season, especially if they have a disappointing season. But I've tried to, just kind of hush that, put that on the back burner. But it's hard to, especially when you really listen to it and play it back. It kind of speaks volumes. Like, I don't know. I just don't know how a coach like that comes in and doesn't really exude confidence into everything. Hell, I'm ripping off everything, talking about, we got a great relationship and we're going to do this. Look at the weapons we got. Look at the kids we got. But that's how he handles that. That speaks loudly. That speaks very loudly.
So I'm super interested in this, and I just can't wait for the season to get rolled around, because if we really unpack what he said, there's nothing inherently untrue about what he said. Like, I don't know how many of us would go out to the bar afterwards with our boss. So, like, describing the employee boss dynamic, that in and of itself isn't wrong, but he didn't answer the question I wanted answered. Whose offense are you going to be running? Right, like that to me is the most important question here. Like, are we going to be doing Jimbo's offense, or is Petrino going to be coming in here and revamping the offense? That to me is the most pressing issue that wasn't answered. I think that it's not getting overblown. So don't get me wrong there, Chris, because you're right with, like, I can easily understand someone listening to that and being like, well, that doesn't sound good, because you're 100%. It's just as easy to say we have a great relationship, this, that, and the other. I just didn't think that there was anything inherently incorrect about what he said, but it didn't answer my question, right? It was very much, well, like coach speak, in my opinion. And we didn't really get anything, I don't know, crazy out there. But I think everybody's just wondering what this offense is going to look like. So that was my first thought, is it just almost doubled down all the questions I had before that press conference, because I didn't think I got any sort of clarification as to whose offense we'd see.
Steve, how about you, man?
I think to Ty's earlier point, I think it's to the latter of what your question is that you're looking to get answered from Bobby Petrino, in terms of he's there to enhance Jimbo Fisher's offense. He is not there to run his own offense. I think if he was there to run his own offense, he'd be a lot more explicit about that. We wouldn't be doing this dance around boss employee analogies and all this other stuff. The question is, do you believe Jimbo Fisher? To me, do you believe Jimbo Fisher is actually going to even let's go with the assumption right now that they're still running Jimbo's system or scheme or whatever you want to call it. Are you of the belief that at the end of the day, the buck stops with Bobby Petrino in terms of how they structure their plays, game plan, all the way through final play calls? Or is it this going to be this back and forth thing where Jimbo's still going to have a lot of say and his hand in the jar? We saw that firsthand with Tom Herman and Mike Yurcich in 2020, where it started going back and forth, and you could kind of tell who called what play. Nino, if you remember that. So yeah. I think that what we're going to see is probably more in that vein. Now, I will say this isn't overblown to me. If Bobby Petrino was just brought here to revamp and call Jimbo's offense, I really don't have as big a problem with that. Sometimes you just need a little bit different flavor and to rework things, and you can have success. I think it'll still be an issue when they play some of the better teams, where that scheme will become an issue. But with the receiver talent they have and really the offensive personnel they have overall, that shouldn't be as an issue unless they start really butting heads and getting in the way. So to me, it comes down to, do you believe Jimbo Fisher and what he's been saying all offseason?
Look here, man, this is my thing on this. Bobby Petrino, is a former head coach in college football, right? Former coach also in the NFL as well. He's not a dumb dude. I think he understands what people are talking about when it comes to that offense. And for him to give, I think, that kind of an answer and nothing really specific kind of, to me, says a lot more than it doesn't say. And if he's coming here just to run Jimbo's offense, Jimbo could have got anybody for that. Bobby Petrino, I think people might say that he's probably a better offensive mind than Jimbo is. I mean, I would say that. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? I would say Bobby's a better offensive mind than Jimbo.
Yeah, based off of what I've seen recently.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, he has more current credibility than Jimbo does.
Yeah, so he has more street cred, right? So you're bringing in a guy with more street cred, and you're not letting him kind of implement his offense. Because if he was, I think he would have said it. I mean, coaches are arrogant, man. They're going to let you know that I'm doing this, right? So I think this is the old Josh Pate talk, where he was like the old stale gallon of milk. And is Bobby Petrino just there with the with the clipboard and the sheet of paper of Jimbo's plays and running the same exact plays as Jimbo? Is Jimbo going to override Bobby once he makes a call? That's the thing I'm ready to see. Is if this offense looks like it has in the past 2 or 3 years, we know who's running the show, and why the hell did you go spend all this money to go get a coach like Bobby Petrino?
I was just gonna piggyback off all of that, and I was gonna simply say this: I think that he is more creative than Jimbo Fisher. I think Jimbo Fisher's offense is predicated around an elite quarterback or somebody who has the potential to be elite. I mean, all we've ever seen him with is Jameis Winston's of the world, Francois, who had the potential, just didn't have the line, right? So we've seen him with those type of players, but those type of quarterbacks. But when you look at somebody like Petrino, obviously he had Lamar Jackson, and that's kind of the anomaly. But I've talked about it before on this show, and I think other people's shows as well, Ty, yours included. But you go back to those Arkansas days, it just wasn't Ryan Mallett, as you guys talked about. It was Felix Jones and freaking Darren McFadden running Wildcat and doing all types of things to basically squeeze by. I mean, I've seen Petrino, when it gets down to the nitty gritty with no quarterback, with his back against the wall, be able to squeeze out wins against teams like LSU back in those days when maybe LSU didn't have the great quarterback, but they had just talent all over the field, and you could not argue with that. And so I've seen him do things like that to where you're just like, look, he has all the creativity in the world. So I think that if Jimbo will let him loose, it will help. Because, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, in this day and age, I mean, Ty, I think that, it's not like a secret that offensive coordinators that go to Alabama, I mean, he has a playbook, certain thing that he wants. Nick Saban has, certain scheme or whatever he wants to run, but he still, takes a little bit off the reins to allow them to kind of have their own spin on it. It's like stay within this whole paradigm, this whole framework, but do what you got to do to win the game. I don't know if I'm there yet with Jimbo as a coach to delegate work like that.
But
go ahead, Nino. Go ahead.
I think the only thing that's different about that, Chris, is that Saban is a defensive guy.
Yeah.
Right? And so he still has his fingerprints in defense. But, I will say with the Pete Golden era, he let Pete kind of do his thing.
Yeah,
to a detriment, right? So, let's be honest. As good of a defensive mind as Saban is, he did let Pete Golden be himself, and he didn't interject himself into Pete Golden's defense, which shows a lot of discipline from a head coach because he knows he has to let his leaders lead. Look, guys, I can talk about this forever. I'm in the military. I talk about this with my troops all the time about, empowering people. And so Saban does a great job of that. I think he empowers his people to do great things. Kirby was empowered to be the hell of a DC, and now he's a hell of a head coach. Same thing with Lane Kiffin, and I mean, just the list goes on. Jimbo, right? So Jimbo's won a championship himself. Sark, the whole team, right? He's done a great job of empowering his people. Can Jimbo do that? And I don't know if Jimbo has it in him. If Jimbo screws this up, I mean, Jimbo has to see that his offense has not been good the last 4 years. It just hasn't. Right? They had the COVID year where it was decent. And then it's been an average offense with all those weapons. That's the killer part. All those weapons. So if he doesn't step back and let Petrino do his thing, what does he have to lose? They're not going to fire him. They owe him too much money. They can't afford to do it. Try something new. What's up?
They haven't had an average offense. They've had a terrible offense. Let's keep it above.
I know. I'm giving a little credit.
I think it was outside the top 100.
They finished 97th in points per game.
That's crazy.
Okay, I'm just looking at the raw
crazy,
statistics, right?
Like the talent on that team.
Yards per game. They finished 97th in points per game. They finished 96th in yards per game.
Consistent.
They finished 110th yards per pass.
Jesus Christ.
Like there's no The only metric where they're really impressive is interception percentage thrown, which they were 6th in the country. And a big part of that is Connor Weigman went for 8 touchdowns and no interceptions when he played last year. So he didn't turn the ball over.
Crazy
But
that you don't throw interceptions when you don't throw the football.
I mean, this is just raw data, right? Like these are the numbers, but we watched them play football last year. We watched them against Appalachian State at home.
They were
Not
garbage.
be able to move the football, right?
I didn't want to
Not
say
be
it,
able to
but
block anybody. And it's not for lack of you had Devon A. Chain who's about to tear up the NFL. It's a question of
Unbelievable.
when,
he's gonna
not
kill it.
if,
He's gonna kill it.
right? You mean before
Nice
before
Smith.
I know Anias went down, but he's back. Anias
Yeah.
is back. You have the great Evan Stewart. Moose
Yeah.
Muhammad
Moose.
got going at the end of last year.
He got
Where
going.
you're adding Reuben Owens, right?
got
And
that
I've heard
tight end
good
from
things
Europe.
already about Reuben.
And Connor has a year, like in his belt right now, so he's good. He's good.
This
I mean,
got
man,
nothing to do with the players, as far as I'm concerned.
it's all on Jimbo. And let's be honest, he's recruited a damn good offensive line. Now, the offensive line was very up and down last year because they were hurt. I'm not going to put that on the line last year. They were inconsistent last year. Bryce Foster was out. I think Cam was out too as well, if I'm not mistaken. It was just up and down. They had a lot of injuries last year, but when that line is healthy, there's
And
nothing.
then Henson isn't there anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But that line is full of 4 and 5 star, high 4 and 5 star guys in that line. They got a 5-star quarterback. They got a 5-star running back coming in as a freshman. You got a 5-star wide receiver. I've seen Bobby Petrino do more with less. Let's just be honest. We've seen Bobby Petrino do more with less.
I agree.
Jimbo has to let it go.
I mean, your running back room, Amari Daniels, Le'Veon Moss, and Reuben Owens. There's a lot of people that are really high on Donovan Green at tight end.
Yeah.
He was a recruit that many of us were after.
Yep.
I don't want to hear any excuses. Now, this offensive line, from what I've heard and what I've read, this is from the A&M people, not from me. From what I've read, they're having some issues in camp. Maybe that's rust. Maybe that's guys being out. I don't know if people are moving around. I know I like Cam Dewberry. I like Bryce Foster. I like Fothery. These are guys that held it down against Bama a couple years ago in the trenches. I don't know what it is. If it's rust or whatever, but we'll have to see when ball starts. We'll see. But I just feel as though, again, Jimbo's supposed to be the quarterback developer, right? And we can go down all the people he hasn't developed over the last however many years.
Developed too.
But I give you Connor Weigman, who is as of right now is still in a battle with Max Johnson, Max Johnson's a very, very good college quarterback, by the way.
Yeah.
But with Connor Weigman, the fact that he's splitting reps and how late that goes, and it's kind of the same thing we were talking about, Ty, with the Bama guys in terms of at what point do you go from splitting all these reps to it's your football team and you get to take over and kind of put your own vibe and spin to it? That's another question we got to see answered. When are they just going to let Connor go? Because it's got to be sooner rather than later, in my opinion, unless Max Johnson is just ascended to another level that we don't know about.
That's not happening. No, that's not happening. He's had his opportunity. It's one of those things where unless you have a Joe Burrow type season. Look, Chris, to go back, you talked about the difference between Nick Saban coming in and allowing these offensive coordinators to put their spin on the offense. One, I think that's because, like Nick said, Nick Saban is far more disciplined in his approach. But two, and I think far more importantly, it's because the base Alabama offense that Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian recreated for Nick Saban, and they have since implemented, its starting place is so much better than Jimbo's offense that that offense they did is really, I don't have the to be able to dive into what Lane Kiffin and Sark did, but it allows for the offense to transition between what they need it to do very fluidly, right? And I think we saw that with Sark, right? Going from the type of quarterbacks he had there and even before, what they created, it allows for a change very fluidly. And I think that's incredible. That's not Jimbo's system. Jimbo's very rigid. right? And I think that rigidness is why we see them having so much problems. I want to frame it like this to you guys, right? Because I really want y'all to understand how wild it is to me we get here with Jimbo Fisher. Because he's being paid like Kirby, like Dabo, like Nick. So I'm going to hold him to those expectations. Nick Saban lost 2 games last year, and I have to listen to Paul Feinbaum say the dynasty is over, his legacy is tarnished.
That's true.
If Nick Saban went as long as Jimbo Fisher did, where his defense, which is his calling card, was in the bottom 30 of college football, people would call for his head. And with Jimbo, it's mum. Like the media, it's mum. If Steve Sarkisian put together an offense that was outside the top 75, people would call for his head. With Jimbo, it's almost become expected. A&M's going to come in. They're going to have a really disciplined defense. They're going to play good defensive football, and offensively, we're not worried about what they do there. It's just about scoring.
Outstanding point.
Every other coach in the nation, they wouldn't have gotten a damn pay raise. They'd have gotten fired. Kevin Sumlin got fired from doing more with less. And I've never understood this point. Like, it's something that actually drives me up a wall.
Yeah.
He didn't recruit as well. They have better talent, and he had less group of 5 losses. Oh, by the way, more road ranked wins, more ranked wins. I just don't understand, Jimbo.
They'll tell you that Kevin Sumlin culture was a problem and he didn't
Oh,
hold
God's
people accountable.
mercy.
That's what they'll say. But Kevin Sumlin, to Ty's point, Kevin Sumlin was nowhere near no damn 97th ranked offense. Ever. Not even close.
Jimbo, think about this, man. If Jimbo gets fired tomorrow, they got to pay him like $80-something million within 60 days.
Let me ask you. So I got a question. This is for Ty.
What's up?
All right. So Ty, your life is on the line, plus the national championship is on the line. Alabama is facing whoever, and they should win, but you've had problems offensively. All right. Let's say in this championship game, you get to pick between these two to call a game. Do you go with Bob or do you go with Jimbo Fisher?
Go. Bob.
That was a great question, Chris.
Oh, you said B.O.B.?
Only because like I just watched him at Alabama, right? And like not to shade the Georgia First national championship, but Bama had put themselves in position to win that national championship.
That's
right?
true.
So like they were right there.
Yeah.
And JMO.
Oh,
JMO doesn't
JMO
go
down.
down.
Jimbo was
Mechie?
gone. Mechie was gone. They were
The whole wide receiving core was gone.
they were gone.
Like you might have a natty with Bob, Chris.
No,
if
that is true. I've said this before, guys.
I'm just saying, hey.
It's a good question.
That
It's
is
a
good
really
question.
good question.
Golly, that's a hard man. I don't want to talk about that first, but hold on. Look, folks, super chat by Quentin, long-term Longhorn fan. Shout out to everyone except Chris. Nino, Fanatic, love the content. Hook 'em. Hey, Quentin, appreciate the $5, brother. But you got to put a K in front of that Chris, man. You got to put a K in front of that Chris, man.
I just love the college football playoff towel.
It's fine.
I love that so much.
Oh, God, that's a man. I would pick Bill O'Brien as well, which is crazy. I can't believe we're sitting here talking about a guy in Jimbo Fisher who has a 10-year, $100-something million contract, or 80, whatever his contract is. He's won a national championship in college. He has a Heisman Trophy winner, underneath his tutelage. He's put 2 quarterbacks in the first round. He got Kellen Mond to the league, for crying out loud. That was very surprising. And he was once regarded as one of the brightest offensive minds in college football. And we're sitting here saying we're going to take Bill O'Brien over Jimbo. And I don't disagree with it. I do not disagree with it. Just think about this for a minute. Bill O'Brien, if Alabama does not have Bill O'Brien last year and has a competent offensive coordinator, Alabama wins the championship last year.
Possibly.
I truly believe that.
I mean,
truly believe that.
that's how good they were. I'll say, I keep saying it, and I'll
We're still undisciplined as hell.
Yeah.
Well,
you guys were 4 points away from being undefeated. Or 5 points.
And that's my point. That's my point. I'll die on that hill. It took LSU and Tennessee, it took the game of their lives to beat y'all last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was y'all didn't just give those games away. Now, don't get me wrong. There was some crazy ass calls in that game as far as defensively. As you're just sitting there with a question mark over your head and grabbing your head like this, but at the same time, it took the game of their lives. It went down to the wire for them to beat y'all.
I'll say we
also,
may have competed, but man,
but Alabama, you can. I mean, Ty, you might know where I'm going with this.
Go ahead, Steve.
Bryce Young may have been the best quarterback they've ever had.
No, not may have been. He was.
he is.
I mean,
in my opinion, yeah.
There's nobody better than Bryce Young.
That's Harry Houdini.
Yeah,
that's Harry Houdini.
Bryce was so good that you were gonna be hard to beat, no matter. Like he's such a force multiplier. Like that's tough to say in my opinion.
For me, just looking at where those programs kind of were coming from, I mean, LSU obviously coming off a national championship, 3-4 years ago. Obviously, we know kind of the disarray that Coach O left that program in. We see how they started that last season and all the rest of that. And then Tennessee has kind of come from the dead, which is a segue because Surfer Boy had a thing. I'm not going to let you disrespect Ty like that because he's saying that Alabama is no longer the dominant program. That's Georgia. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
Surfer Boy said they're going for 3. They're going for a 3-peat over there in Athens.
Fine Bum only said that because his bum, I won't say the other word, but his bum team, Tennessee, is on a resurgent, wave right now. And I'll leave it at that. But that's the only reason why he made that comment. He didn't make it about Georgia. Y'all won 2 in a row. I'll give y'all that. But at the same time, I still think that outside of Auburn,
Chris, you just breezed by the run. They won 2 in a row.
I give you that.
I give you that. I'm just saying.
It's
not like Alabama longer than that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
Easy, 2 in a row.
Nothing, little burger right there. 2 national championships.
Little something there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh God, he said it like they won like SEC player of
the week.
I'm like player of the week or something. Man. Just something like small.
I'm my boy, man. You know,
we're talking about national championships, and he's talking about like which player had the highest GPA or something.
That's crazy,
bro. If my team won back-to-back natties, I would be way less humble than Surfer Boy is. Oh my God.
I'll let Surfer Boy slide because that's how I was when we ripped off 6 straight Big 12 championships. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, hold on, guys. This goes into our next discussion. I want to kind of get in this. Kim Hurst has put up a great point. If IRS changes Jimbo, does that release A&M from their contract? And Kim, thanks for bringing that up because our next topic is going to be about Texas A&M and their big NIL program, the 12th Man Fund. So I'm actually reading this from the On3 NIL page. It says when the 12th Man Fund launched in February of 2023, it was heralded as the next evolution of NIL collectives, a booster funding entity run through Texas A&M's fundraising arm, the 12th Man Foundation. The fund became the closest public link between a traditional athletic department fundraising effort and NIL-related donor dollars. The decision has been now made, however, to discontinue the foundation's NIL operations after discussing the IRS memo released in early June with advisors. A 501c3 entity since the 1980s, the 12th Man Fund has led funding initiatives for scholarships, programs, and facilities in College Station. So, folks, IRS gets involved here and finds out that maybe that 12th Man Foundation, which is one of the largest collectives for the Texas A&M program, something wasn't done right tax-wise in regards to this NIL. And so they had to disband the whole foundation. This gets to me. We've been talking about this, folks, for a couple years now. Nick Saban brought it up, during last year where Jimbo went on the Big Tyrant last year, and he went and said that he knows where the bodies are buried with Saban. That's why other coaches never come back to coach for Saban, yada, yada, right? Get it, understand. But Jimbo got pressed in that same
He may have to make that return here. If his
he might have to make that. I know he might need some coach rehab. Jimbo was asked a question about the Texas A&M NIL collective last year, and he had no clue of what it was. He couldn't tell you what was in it. He couldn't tell you anything about the collective. He said it was all great, all legal. They asked him, what was it? He goes, I don't know. I leave it up to the people. So first of all, how do you know what the program is and how legal it is if you don't know shit about it? And now to see that Texas A&M's NIL collective has now been basically demolished now, and it's no more of a thing. What do you guys think about just the recruiting and the NIL impacts that this is going to have for Texas A&M going forward?
Well, before Chris, I really want to hear from you on this, but before I pass, I have a question I'd like to hear from you. I think, don't get me wrong, Texas A&M is a part of the story, but if I'm not mistaken, reading the IRS memo, reading the verbiage from it, and then reading Texas A&M's statement, this is the IRS double backing on their 503Cs that they've handed out and saying, wait, what exactly are y'all doing in the NIL sphere? And now they're taking a look. And Texas, ironically, passed that law June or July 1st, where it said the NCAA can't really overstep into looking into what they're doing. Yeah, it didn't say what the IRS couldn't do. Let me tell you what, if the IRS wants in your business, they're getting in your business. You can try and pass that law all you want. It's not going to matter. But they're not the only state that did that. Oklahoma has something coming on the books. Arkansas has something coming on the books. New York has something coming on the books. I guess, Chris, my question is there a larger story here about a ripple effect that college football is about to see in the NIL sphere? I don't think it will kill NIL. They'll just pivot, right? We're about to see a pivot, but is there a larger story here?
Okay, so this is what I want to say. So a few weeks ago, I was watching Vice. I won't say Vice News. I think it was just Vice, and I saw a thing about these companies like Nike and Google, how they're basically making all this money by these tax incentives and everything offshore, right? These offshore accounts, right? It's essentially the same thing. This is basically big donors, big time donors with a lot of money, basically trying to exploit loopholes and all the rest of that. It's essentially the same thing, and that's what they did. Ty, you said it from the get-go. Honestly, you answered your question ages ago on your own show when you said, one, this is the Wild Wild West. Two, there's going to be all types of dirty stuff done until we get some type of regulation. Because we all agree that that's honestly what needed. That's the type of regulation you need, something that stops this right here. This is one of those things where it feels like Robin Hood just came in and just took all their money back and said, hey, I'm going to give this to the poor, but at the same time, I'm not giving you anything back. So looking at this article that I'm looking at now, it's saying that they're going to call these donors directly and basically give them options of how to redirect their payments. Can you imagine having that conversation with these big time donors, knowing that they've given thousands upon thousands, maybe even $1 million to this collective, thinking that was going to be written off? Because that's how you attract those donors, and you bring in even more donors, new boosters, and all the rest of that stuff. So it really, honestly, I think this is a ripple effect, because I think this is a wake-up call for everybody out there, the Arkansas, Oklahoma, New York's, all of them who are enacting all this law about the NCAA or any other legislation being passed. But the problem is that the IRS, Uncle Sam, is always going to have a say in what you're doing. So it is a ripple effect, and it's a wake-up call that, hey, you better be doing everything legit, because if you're not, the 12th Man Plus Fund or whatever you want to call it, that's not going to work. So I definitely think that's going to ripple through every state for them to actually look at this and say, okay, how we do this. I don't necessarily know if there is a pivot for you to find as far as any type of legislation. All that you have to do is just like that Vice story that I was telling you about. Those companies continue to, what you say, pivot, but they pivot on I'm just saying allegedly this is what has been out there, but these big companies, these big brands or whatever, they're just pivoting. They're finding more and more loopholes every time that they make some type of legislation or the IRS comes. They're making more loopholes, and they're figuring out, how do I get the most for this tax incentive? Those tax incentives are crazy. Being 1099 myself, everything, you're trying to figure out how to make everything a write-off. You know, and it's dual income. You have your personal income, but you have your business income. You want to make sure everything from your business is there, from food to clothes to everything can possibly be there. So it's one of those things where they're going to have to figure this out somehow. And I'm talking about Texas A&M, because this is a huge blow to their NIL collect. Don't get me wrong, they can start up a new collective that will be fine with that, but will the money run dry now that they don't have the luxury of saying, hey, this is going to be a huge write-off for you?
Hey, Chris, I want to piggyback on that, man, because I think this is where when A&M jumped out fast and had their NIL come out, right? And we saw other schools were slow to the pace. You know, Texas was kind of slow to it. Or I think OU was kind of slow to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was a problem. I think Bama was slow to it as well, right? I think they kind of waited their time. They did their due diligence. They did their research. And I think that this is really a black eye on A&M, because this is where your higher ups are the ones who are talking to these donors. These donors aren't talking to the kids directly. They're not talking to Jimbo. They're talking to the people in the endowment office who is getting that money from those guys to do what they do in the program, right? So those folks need to know the law like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody who is, like you say, Chris, donating $1 million or $100,000 and thinking that it's going to be a tax write-off, and now Uncle Sam's calling you and saying, yeah, you donated $1 million. That's still part of your salary. I need $400,000 of that, like within 6 months with interest. That's a black eye for A&M, because they didn't explain that right to the donors, and the donors probably have enough money to pay for it, but who wants to lose that kind of money, right?
But I'm gonna jump in, and I'm gonna say this before Ty says it, because I know Ty's mind has probably went here already. How the hell do you even sit there and think that this would be a nonprofit? Like, there's nothing that makes any of this
offering tax credits.
I mean, it's common sense. All of us are business savvy enough to know this. No, because it's pay for play. What do you do?
I bet you somewhere in the fine print of whatever the 12th Man Plus Foundation was, it probably said tax deductible, and then it had an asterisk by it, and it probably said the shipping fee or the wire transfer fee is tax deductible. The rest of your shit's getting taxed.
I'll tell you who this falls on, and it doesn't fall on Jimbo. It falls on the director of compliance or whatever, whoever's the head honcho over the compliance department at Texas A&M. This falls on them because they made a serious misstep on this. There's something that they can bounce back from, but you have to hope that if you have 40 donors, you have to hope that at least 25 to 30 of them are okay. It's okay. I can afford this, or whatever the case may be, and they're not sitting here saying, well, I mean, inflation is hitting everybody, and I'm mad about this. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that you have to look out for. But again, I'll go back to my point. I think that's where I come off of it as, how the hell do you think pay for play? We've been talking about this for years before this was even NIL. How does this come off as something that could be a 501 because you're donating the money to the program to pay kids to play football?
Chris, here it was. They just thought that all the stuff that they were doing before NIL was going to change. They're still going to be able to give this money away, and it was what it was.
Bro, this is like, you know, I love it when I see people call Texas A&M ATM. I mean, this is the equivalent of me and Ty going to College Station right now, driving my truck down there, hooking a chain up and taking an ATM off of campus, just riding around town with it. And money, we just losing money the whole time. Ty's like, hey, what's that sound back there? I said, I don't know, but we got to keep going, man. We got to get off campus. You know what I'm saying? You get back to Ty's house, and we sitting there with $30 even, talking about, well, I guess we're gonna split. That's what's happening.
Steve, what you think, man?
It's funny, the great demise of so many enterprises in this country comes at the hands of the IRS, including the great, the infamous Al Capone, who went down via the IRS, for those who don't know. It's interesting to me, Nino, you kind of touched on this earlier, the silence in which they operated their NIL that first year. And then they came out more publicly this year. I believe the article said February 2023 when they announced the 12th man fund and everything and how they wanted to structure the collective publicly. But I think the target was already on their backs for how everything went down that first year. If you guys remember, it wasn't just Nick Saban that was coming after A&M about how they kind of put that whole class together. It was everybody in college football. And they were really unapologetic about it, the behind the scenes with what was going on. I mean, if we want to be real, I'm not saying again, this is all alleged, okay? Because I don't want anybody coming after me with anything. This is allegedly, if you understand what I'm saying, allegedly. But with all the noise that was happening behind the scenes and kind of how things seemed to be going around, you draw attention to yourself. And so when you perception can be reality with a lot of these things, especially where the IRS decides to levy resources. Because wherever they have resources, like Ty said earlier, once they come to your house, you have to open the door. Okay. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what, it does not matter. We are coming in and we are looking at your books and we will get to the truth. The IRS is undefeated.
Boy.
So in this particular case, the schools that were slower, like were mentioned before, that's also the kind of for public, hey, we're handling this delicately, and we want to make sure that everything is in lock and key and in compliance. And as Chris said, your compliance office, this is everything. I mean, I think people are now schools are now going to pay more and more attention to those elements, because the biggest thing that can crash any NIL thing will be the IRS in college.
So one last point before we move on to some more news, more topics. But if you go back, you start to remember that it felt like the money well was drying up, simply because you kept hearing some kids talk about they hadn't been paid this or that. Mm-hmm. Some kids were leaving for mysterious reasons or whatnot. I don't know, but I'm not going to say that this is what caused that, but this could have been something. This could have been an early byproduct of this, because this is probably news that happened. I mean, that's really broke probably months and months, maybe even last year, that people knew this was coming, that they were being audited or something like that. I don't know. And that
a couple things there, Chris, because you bring up a good point. This is where we get into these 360 deals with some of these brothers that got that. Yeah. I don't. The money is there. I want to make this clear. They have money. There's no money drying up. It's just the way they had their contract set up for what you're supposed to be doing. Again, this is alleged. Mm-hmm. But they have brothers on 360 deals, and when you're 18 and you hear the figure and you're not paying attention to the T's and C's, I felt like a lot of people got caught up right off the bat, right? Whether it was, hey, you're only going to get this money if you attend this engagement or you do this particular service or whatever. And because it was so behind doors and behind closed doors, none of us even really knew it was up. At least with some of the other NILs we've seen, it's kind of more upfront about, all right, the players are going to do X, Y, Z to receive X amount of dollars. Like, it's pretty straightforward, right? So that's kind of, I think that's kind of why I'm pushing back on the money drying up. I think it's just more so they kind of knew, there was some nefarious deals going on with some of these individual men that were involved.
Hey, quick question, Ty. You may know this. Are these college football players? Are they considered 1099?
I have no idea.
That's a good question, Chris.
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah, because with the whole Williams Nwaneri thing, you're sitting here saying OU is it's OU's to lose, but then Missouri, the rumor is they're dropping, hey, we want to give you $750,000. So don't get me wrong, even if taxes cut that into $350,000, Hell, that's I would love to have the 350. You know what I'm saying? But I'm wondering are these players actually 1099 or like how are they taxed for this money? Because there's a guy on Twitter. I encourage everybody to follow him. His name is Andrew Petcash, and he breaks down all of these NBA players, NFL players' contracts. If you go look at like Tyrese Halliburton got 260, and you're sitting there breaking that down, his net is only 17 mil. On the surface, you're thinking, oh, he's gonna make 60 mil a year or whatever the case may be, but he's paying a jock tax. He's paying a escrow, his escrow, his agent, state taxes. He's doing all of those things or whatnot, paying that, and it brings that number down. Don't get me wrong, 17 mil, regardless of what he's making, 1, 2, 3 million. That's more than I've ever seen, but I'm still saying that there's certain things like that I'm really trying to figure out how these players, you know, are they keeping all this money or are they being taxed, you know?
They got to be taxed.
They got to be.
I have no idea.
They have to be taxed.
The
and
one
I'm
thing
thinking,
really
like,
stands...
if you're not incentivizing that in your like recruitment pitch as far as the NIL package pitch, you're crazy. You're not doing your homework. If you're sitting there, if I'm Texas A&M, that's the pitch. It's not, hey, we'll give you land, or you see these guys in the stands, whatever that coach said. I'm sitting there saying, hey, so if we give you $1 million, there's a good chance that you'll probably see $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. There's no state income tax, yada 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 here in Texas. You go to OU or you go elsewhere where they do have state income taxes, you probably only seeing 200. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, yeah. One of the things, let me jump in here real quick. Daniel, if you see me looking down, it's because the camera is now here, the laptop is here, so I have to watch the stream from right here. So when you see me looking down, I'm looking at the panel and everything, not tired. It's something I'm still trying to get used to. But the thing that I'm so interested in is the IRS had a line, right? And it was basically saying, and it was convoluted legal terms, but it basically summarized to, if you're filed under a 503c getting, you know, non-profit status, and any of your money through your collective is going to NIL, which is directly and proportionally helping your institution, the IRS is going to give you a look.
Yeah.
My question is how many NIL collectives out there right now are starting to look through their own paperwork and be like, what do we need to do to make sure we're not next? Because I don't know that A&M is going to be alone in this.
That is true.
They were just allowed to mouth.
They won't be, but it's not a surprise that they were the first ones to get got by the IRS.
You know, someone made a great point in my video earlier. They said Miami also has a stake in being the first one because Ruiz and the IRS are going at it right now, and that's so closely tied. And I was like, you know what? That's a really good point. That's a really good point. The IRS is they're due.
Miami. All I can think of when I think of this this NIL stuff, I just say, damn, Shapiro was so damn out. He's just hey, wrong era. Wrong era. Y'all know, if you know, you know. But if Shapiro was around now, you
thought the 7th floor boys were bad then? You just wait. Shapiro was around right now.
Man. All right, we got another topic here. Next topic, man. Number 1 defensive man in the country, Colin Simmons. Number 1 player in the state of Texas. Number 5 player in the country, I think, by Entre consensus. Has the top 3, Miami, Texas, and LSU. I think Miami just got thrown on the board just to be on there. But this is a Texas-LSU battle. A lot of confidence coming on from both sides. LSU has been very confident. Texas has been very confident. I'm going to let Steven start this one off. And, just tell me your feelings about the Colin Simmons recruitment, from both teams.
Yeah, so I'm going to go big picture and then as a Texas fan, right? So big picture, this is huge in terms of the SEC, why we started this channel, right? Going head up against LSU. We've gone head up on recruits before, right? But somebody on the defensive side of the ball in the trenches, Last year, it was kind of three-way between Harold Perkins, with us, LSU, and Texas A&M. Obviously, LSU won that battle. And this whole front, in terms of LSU having that relationship early with Colin Simmons, and LSU really had led this recruitment for a very long time. It wasn't really until the last few months where Texas really picked up steam, I felt like. And I think a big part of it was that big weekend we had probably a month or two ago, where we really started to generate a lot of momentum and putting this 2024 class together. This is going to tell us a lot just heading into the SEC. I mean, how we have to recruit as Texas fans against schools like LSU. The inevitable battles we'll have against Georgia, the inevitable battles we'll have against the Mississippi schools, the Florida schools. So LSU is throwing their best punch. We're throwing our best punch. There's a reason why you have very, very highly respected recruiting analysts that have, many of them have been flawless this cycle, going head up on their predictions, right? And so Colin as well, and his family, how they've handled this recruitment, how close to the vest they've held things. He's a guy where you kind of know where he stands when you look at his face and you hear him talk, but how they've handled this thing is really, really fascinating. And I expect, just with everything I heard and the people I trust, I got to roll with Texas tomorrow. But I know there's LSU people here that still feel, even with some of the, I guess, the news starting to shift, that, hey, we're going to stay 10 toes down with where things are at tomorrow, when he announces with his teammate Caden Durham, who is the running back out of Duncanville. These are guys who are defending state champions. And so we'll see what happens there. But with the great Colin Simmons, this is also a position from a Texas outlook, Nino and Chris and Ty, massive position of need for us. Massive, massive, massive position of need. LSU, if he goes LSU, the rich get richer. I'm going to just be blunt. The rich get richer. He comes to we need a Colin Simmons. I mean, we needed Perkins last year. It didn't happen. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. But it's exciting. It's exciting recruitment, nonetheless.
Hey, Steven, I want to talk about this too. This is the reason why Texas and OU are going to the SEC. All right. Texas is going heavy on the defensive line this year. The edge as well. So is Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going scorch earth right now on the defensive line, and they're going to pick up some good guys, and they've already picked up some good guys too as well. But this is the reason why you go to the SEC, is because there's always been like a negative pitch from the SEC teams. Why are you going to go to Texas? Why go to Oklahoma? Doesn't make any sense. You're not playing against the best talent. You can't say that anymore. All right. You got two huge brands coming into the SEC, and both of these teams are going to be able to sew up Texas, sew up, Oklahoma, and kind of kick some of the old teams out of the state once A&M went to the SEC and brought in those teams to come in here to get talent from the state, right? So I think having Texas A&M, and Oklahoma all basically within like 3 hours of each other now in the SEC, I think that's going to kind of lock down that state for quite some time. There's enough talent to go around, and this is why those two teams went to the SEC, is to get big boy talent like this. Oklahoma is in it for, now with, what's the kid's name, Chris? Chris, can't hear you. You on mute.
So McKinley or Durham, or who are you talking about?
No, I meant Williams Ranieri.
Yeah, him.
Ranieri.
Yeah. Ranieri. Ranieri is a beast. He's a huge OU lean right now. And you got to understand that them being in the SEC too is probably helping out a lot with that recruitment as well. And BV being the coach that he is for the defense side of the ball, being one of the best in the country, is helping that as well. But going to go play in the best conference in the league, in the country, is helping as well. That's why those two teams went there, is to be in the recruiting battles against the Georgias, the LSUs, and the Bamas, to go get that kind of talent. But Colin Simmons is huge for Texas if Texas can pull him. Texas has been in dire need of an edge for years now. I think we got lucky and got Joseph Asai. Not lucky that we got him, but lucky that he turned out to
How he developed.
Yeah. I don't think anybody saw him turning it into that kind of prospect when he first, came to Texas. I think the last great defensive end or last great edge that came in with a high name, with a high floor, was probably Jackson Jeffcoat. Steve?
You are correct. It would be Jackson Jeffcoat,
That's
who
a long
was
ass time ago.
from Plano West, class of 2010.
That's a long time.
And Jeffcoat ended up winning Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year at Texas, but that is 13 years ago.
That's a long time.
And we're saying consensus 5-star. We know we've gotten some good edges, but
we got Charles O, we had Joseph Asai, but Jackson Jeffcoat, when you get somebody that comes in that could be a game changer for your program like Colin Simmons.
Can I go ahead and butt into this conversation?
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm gonna be on a serious vibe right now, and I was having a little bit too much fun with this. But you guys got a dog on campus. You got a kid that we wanted, that was committed to us, that flipped back to his hometown Longhorns. Colton Vasek. Early reports, I'm not sure what's current now. Don't really keep up with the kid. Hope everything's going well for him, but I heard he was just a little bit too small, trying to kind of gain that weight, trying to get that college weight on him, trying to, or whatnot. But I think the world of Vasek. I think in the end, I really do like Taylor Wynn, however you say his last name. I really like him as, the guy we went and got after he decommitted and flipped to you guys. But I'd say for Texas, I think y'all got a dog on campus already. Would love to see him paired up with Colin Simmons. But these are the battles that you got to win. I've been wanting to talk to you two about this for a longest. So I watch Orange Bloods. I do. I try to keep it in the know. I mean, hey, I watch Fanatic Perspective and Nino's Corner, but I go over there to Orange Blood. You know what I'm saying? I said, hey, did Ketchum just make a good point? Ketch, I see you. Is Bo Davis overrated? Is Bo Davis ready? Is he really worth the $1 million salary that he's getting? Because he ain't brought nearly squat to Texas. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how are y'all, and as much money as y'all have and as much high need of this position that y'all have, he's instantly playing next year if he comes. How the hell is this even coming down to a 2-man race between y'all and LSU? I don't get it.
Muted. I want Chris muted right away.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve. Oh, Ty. Go ahead, Ty. Ty wants to get in there.
That's such a slippery slope, right? Like that's such a slippery slope, man. But no, I'm gonna just stick to the Colin Simmons piece really quickly and then give it back, man. Because this, y'all said it best. This is a major need for Texas, especially for the PK defense. You got a huge win last year in Anthony Hill, and I think the world of him being in Denton right now. He played for Denton Ryan. I think he is going to be spectacular. But, man, I just don't think that Colin Simmons is a guy that, I don't want to sound dramatic, but Texas almost can't afford not to get him. Right, because look, I know that going to the SEC, that's going to help the Texas brand in recruiting. But if we look at the top 20 players right now in the state of Texas, they have a crystal ball for one of them outside of Colin Simmons. That's it. The top 20 players in the state of Texas, they might land 2. And maybe Micah Hudson. I'm not convinced on the crystal ball to Texas Tech. I'm just not. I'll believe it when I see it. I know that he had a long-standing relationship with the Longhorns. And I think that's one that y'all could win, but that's why Simmons is a guy that, man, the Longhorns really want to add in because, Chris, Bo Davis has been an integral part in that defensive front, gaining the identity that they do have, and that's not a bad aspect of that team. If we're looking at the part like Colin Simmons would satisfy, that's PK, and specifically that Jack and X linebacker position that's integral to his defense. That's not Bo Davis.
Derek showed as well.
Yeah, but no, that's my thought on Colin Simmons. He is as close to. I don't think any prospect is must land, especially when you have the ability to recruit in the top 10 classes. But he's as close to must land as can get. Right? I said the same thing last year about James Smith and Peter Woods for Alabama. They split it. They got one of them. Peter Woods at Clemson already turning heads there, which is just fantastic. That's great. But yeah, it's one of those for Texas, big battle. And Chris, you want to know why it's a 2-team race? It's LSU.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's not just like anybody, man. It's LSU.
Yeah.
They do what they do. You can't argue with LSU and what they do in college football.
I want to make.
Before
Oh, go ahead,
Stephen
Chris.
tries to correct me, okay, and tries to teach me a lesson, I'm just gonna say this. Does it not make y'all feel a little bit nervous? Hold on, it's a little bit cold, a little bit chilly in here. I'm shaking right now. I'm shaking. Does it make y'all feel a little bit nervous that Caden Durham and Colin Simmons are both going to be committing on the same day, and LSU is tops in the tops for both of them? It don't make y'all feel a little bit suspicious? What's going on?
No, because no matter who gets him tomorrow, they're going to continue to recruit this kid until the whistle.
You see the comments. You see the comments about it's his dream school.
Yeah.
About he's wanting to do this. I hear about the connections and all the rest of the stuff that he has. I'm gonna be there because the same energy that y'all Texas fans sent our way when we lost David Hicks. But he best believe I'm gonna be tweeting my ass off tomorrow. I know exactly what I'm gonna be doing. I want the smoke. I want the smoke, Nick.
I didn't give you any smoke about David Hicks.
Well, the David Hicks thing, it's because y'all cried and said that he got a bag from A&M at the last second. That was a completely different situation than at this point, we know what it is between it's literally 50-50 between these schools.
50-50 game right now.
Y'all were shocked.
I was shocked.
And here's the thing, as a Texas fan, I'm gonna say this, Chris. I'm gonna be very transparent right now. Let's say Colin Simmons picks Texas tomorrow.
Yeah.
Nino, if we go 8-4, he's not coming to Texas, bro.
Yeah.
Let's keep it a buck. If we go 8-4 this season, he's not coming. Okay.
Unless LSU goes 8-4.
So all tomorrow to me is a checkpoint in this. Tomorrow's a checkpoint. He's not signing any paperwork. Okay. It's not late in the season. It's before the season starts. Okay. So for Texas, especially if he commits to Texas, it is imperative that we play good football. It is imperative that those edges look good because, even to what Ty was saying earlier, when you bring up LSU, look what they just did with Harold Perkins last year. And they got
Jamari in the previous couple of years, they
got the current credibility there that we can't compete with right now. So we have no choice but to be good this year, or else we're not getting the player in December. So that's my only kind of. Ty already addressed the position coach thing in terms of who's recruiting who, but regardless, Texas is going to have to perform on the field to maintain the services of Colin Simmons, even if we win that recruitment tomorrow.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting, man. I'm all for it. It's going to be a good battle here until the end of the season because, like you said, no matter who he commits to tomorrow, every team in the country is going to have a slot open for him if he wants to call and says, I want to come to your school. Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Ohio State. If they say, look, Colin says he wants to come here, they're going to kick somebody off of that squad to let him in. Okay, so I mean he's pretty much wanted. What you put in there, Chris?
JW Crunch. I know. She said.
With the Anthony Hill, I wanted to address the Ty's Anthony Hill point. Anthony Hill to me is still. I still think the world of Anthony Hill. Okay, in terms of the type of I'm just as high on Anthony Hill as it is on Colin Simmons. My thing with Colin Simmons is Colin Simmons. At the end of the day, it's all about positional value and where he plays. And because of where he plays and how he's utilizing that Duncanville defense, Anthony Hill may play some edge for us this year. We don't know. I mean, he's going to be all over the place. But he's more.
He might play edge out of necessity. That's how bad it is right now at edge.
Yeah, I mean, and he's but at the end of the day, he's still projected to be an inside linebacker. And Bassick, another guy who. We really like, but the difference between a Colton Bassick and a Colin Simmons is some of the things you said. Probably needs a year to put on weight. Probably going to take a little bit of time to get into the rotation. I know Colin Simmons right now can play on third down in college football, no questions asked. That's the difference.
Yeah,
day one ready.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only difference.
All they're
I
gonna
think
do
Vasek
is
can
redefine.
develop into an NFL player, no doubt about it. But the difference is right off the bat, I need to go get the quarterback. It's 3rd and 8 in a college football game. I can put Colin Simmons on the field right now.
I mean,
Confident.
I think Vasek is what R. Mason Thomas was for us last year. He was undersized, 220, trying to play defensive end at an elite college level, at Power 5 college level. That's not going to work. He was effective. You saw the effort, but it's the strength that he was lacking. So, you know, I really think that you guys got something with Vasek on that line. I'm really eager to see what he's going to do. You know, my aunt, he kind of actually he corrected me. He's not. Hey, look, he likes y'all too. He doesn't like Texas, but he said, "Hey, man, the Anthony Hill kid is probably going to be big for them." He said he's not going to be overshown yet. He has a higher ceiling than overshown, but he said he's just got to learn. Just got to learn, honestly, and get more experience actually at this level. But he said that kid was real.
He's special.
He's special.
He's special.
We capitalized flipping him because A&M was down.
Oh yeah,
during the season.
Exactly.
And you know, once some of these schools started looking a certain way and OU started looking a certain way, yeah, it gets a lot easier to flip a kid. So it is imperative that we play good football next year, or else it doesn't matter.
Y'all got to bring back Patterson. Y'all got to bring back GP.
Yeah, you know, for the secondary.
I'm not even saying for the secondary defense alone, but I think that he has that connection with a lot of those Dallas kids, and I think that he could be crucial in kind of swaying those kids' opinions. I think that he's somebody that you put out there on a recruiting trail, you know?
I don't think they could put him on a recruiting trail.
No, they can't recruit him on a recruiting trail, but when they bring them in, you know, so I don't know. However,
he knows how to. I mean, to that point though, Chris, that's a phone call. Just knowing he's there of talking to a coach that he's probably hit up over 10, 12, 20 years for the same players.
Yeah,
it makes a difference when he's in the room when he's not in the room.
Now also knowing that he is recruiting for a bigger brand too. Nothing against TCU, they had a hell of a season last year, but it is a bit. It's almost it's like
y'all leave Ty alone. Jeez.
I have to look down at the computer. I can't tell.
Ain't nothing wrong with Ty. Ty, put your damn thing up here.
I know.
Everybody see.
Hey Ty, did you see my comment on your video today?
No, I genuinely try and block out any of the comments you leave.
Bruh. Just go back and look at it. But what I was going to say is just right here, 2 things. First off, are we convinced that this Ford kid at the other linebacker spot, is he going to live up to the hype that he has this year? And then 2, if you guys do not get Colin Simmons, can we all agree that seat is a little bit hot for Bo Davis?
Why would it be hot for Bo Davis?
I'm just saying,
Bo Davis.
He really wants. He just wants Bo Davis out of there.
I want to make it very clear. That's like harassing Jeff Banks because we didn't get a quarterback. Okay,
that's like getting he's not responsible for that. Yeah, you know,
PK, Jeff Choate, Banks is a volume recruiter, so Banks is everywhere.
Yeah,
but Choate and PK, that's their baby. And to be honest with you, LSU people will tell you the same thing. With Colin Simmons, it's all hands on deck with the whole damn staff. Okay, so there's certain recruits where everybody is involved.
But I want to answer the Bo Davis question. All right. Look, Bo Davis. Now, with us going to the SEC, same thing with you guys, Chris. Let's
get off the bus, Bo.
Let's be honest, Chris. You guys are going scorch earth right now on defensive line recruiting because your guys' defensive line recruiting has not been where it should be for the SEC.
Oh no, it was terrible.
No, but that's the reason why you guys and us couldn't get the top tier defensive linemen, the 6'6", 320-pound guys, because they want to go play in the SEC. You know that better suits their need. Now that we are going to the SEC, you see us last year go and get a Mitchell. I love Sadir Mitchell, 6', what is he, Steven? 6'6", 340, somewhere around there. Big kid out of New Jersey that Georgia wanted heavily.
Yeah.
You know, going to get Alex January from Duncanville, another 6'6", 320-pound kid that's 16 years old right now. Going to go get the kid from Florida as well, DeAndre Robinson, right? You know, so going to go get these kids that are already 320, 330 pounds, they got 60-plus offers each that are SEC
Melvin Hill,
kids.
too.
Yeah, Melvin Hill. Man, how can I forget about Melvin Hill? Look, you're getting the SEC talented players now because next year they're going to play in the SEC at Texas. And I think that's exactly what some of these kids are waiting for, is to understand that, no kidding, I am going to go play in the SEC. Those big kids at those 6'4", 6'5", 300-plus pound defensive tackles that can just hold up 2 or 3 men at a time, we're all going to Bama and Georgia and South Carolina because the best ball is played there and they're going to get the highlights on them. But now, with Texas and OU going, you're seeing OU going scorched earth right now. They're getting a lot of defensive alignment. And it makes sense now. Guys that you guys will never be in the running for in the past couple of years. Same thing with Texas. That's the reason.
I think Texas, you know what? I think Texas should get rid of Bo Davis. I think Oklahoma should get rid of Todd Bates. And I think all of these elite defensive linemen should come on down to Tuscaloosa. Just come on down to Tuscaloosa.
Look,
I want to say, before we go on, before we get to the last topic, which is the coaches poll that was released, I do want to say this. Look, if anybody's in terms of criticizing Bo Davis, I don't want to hear from you if you're outside the circle. Okay, if you're inside the circle, we can talk about the allegations. If you are outside of the Texas circle, I don't want to hear from you. Okay, we will survive the allegations through and through. Look at the guys that just got drafted. Keandre Coburn is not getting drafted if it's not for Bo Davis. Okay,
Chris, you owe me something, Chris. You said Coburn was not getting drafted last year, Chris.
Well,
I need to go look at the videos and see what you owe me. Pay me what you owe me, Chris.
My uncle called me. He said, "Hey, man, you can't do another show with Nick." He said, because you was talking bad about Coburn, and Coburn got drafted. I was like, who got drafted? He said, Coburn. I looked at
Coburn
my
got
phone,
drafted,
said,
brother.
oh, no.
So Kansas City Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs. That man, hey, within 2 years, he's going to have a ring. But
I hope he has the best career, but I'm still shocked.
Let me say this, because I'm about to have to hop out of here and go run and grab something. But sooner, I misspoke earlier. I meant to say James Smith came to Bama. Peter Woods went to Clemson and has been putting it on. And I, too, am excited to see Caleb Downs. But people in the chat are saying they've been going to 5 schools talking about defensive linemen. They've been going to Clemson, Ohio State, Texas A&M, Bama, and Georgia. The problem is there's 4 more schools on that list than I want to see on that list.
Yeah.
There's one school I'm happy with. The other 4 schools, they need to get up off that list. They need to get up off that list. But in seriousness, man, you guys got SEC caliber defensive line coaches, both of you.
Yep.
Todd Bates at Oklahoma and Bo Davis came from the SEC before the NFL and everything. And he had a stint at Texas as well. Just painting the picture, he knows the landscape. But, yeah, firing Bo Davis, that's just an asinine assumption.
That's crazy. Just from the sheer development piece,
look, I'm reporting what has been said.
You said Coburn wasn't going to get drafted last year. Coburn got drafted to the Chiefs. Ojimo got drafted. He had an extra year to actually come back and play, and he didn't use it. He still got drafted by the Eagles. And let's be honest, Javonte Sweat would have got drafted last year too. I mean, he was projected as a 3rd, maybe 4th round pick. He comes back. Byron Murphy's going to get drafted next year. And let's be honest, I got a feeling Afrikaans will get drafted, Steven. I'm just be honest.
I just think it's crazy that
coach's poll before he has to go. Y'all ain't
I just think it's crazy that a guy that owes you money,
a guy
that owes you money about that, a player at that position, he says he's the very person to come on here and say, I heard, or the streets are saying the position coach should get fired. Yeah. Bro, if that's not gaslighting, I don't know what is, bro. That's crazy, bro.
Y'all not disrespect me with gaslighting, saying I'm gaslighting, and 2 talking about Alfred Collins on this show. Let's move on to the next subject before it gets
Let's go. Okay? Let's move on.
Disrespect me like that.
Let's move to the next one. Hold on right quick. Let me get this.
All right.
All right, y'all.
Ty.
Hey, Ty, you out?
All right, Ty.
Yeah, I'll see y'all next week. Later.
Right, we'll see you, man. All right.
Alfred
football poll. Chris over here talking mess.
Wow.
All right, college football polls, folks. It's from ESPN, college football coaches poll for 2023. As you can see, I don't think it's any shock that Georgia is the number 1 team in the country. Should be. I don't think it should be close. Michigan, folks. What do you guys think about Michigan coming in number 2?
Man, here's what I had to say. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for this. I think this is a hot take, big hot take. I think that JJ McCarthy, I know that everybody makes a big deal about Drake May. I think JJ McCarthy is more talented than Drake May. He just hasn't put it all together on the field yet. I think his best football, we still haven't seen his best football yet. With those two running backs, with Edwards and Corum back in the fold, and I mean, they're pretty much going to be doing the same thing that they do defensively. I think I would say deservingly so. I would say that Ohio State just has too big of a question mark at quarterback, though I think Kyle McCord is the answer. But I definitely think that I'm fine with Michigan being 2.
Yeah, same here. How about you, Steven?
Michigan, I covered this a little bit on my stream with the college football roundtable. You guys go check that out when you get a chance. Everybody out there, and it was the day that this came out, and I'm gonna make the same point I made about Michigan that I did there. This is the team that's like, if there's any team that left last season thinking they just blew it, and an opportunity, it's Michigan. 100%. They went into the college football playoff undefeated. They had, done what they needed to do against Ohio State. They had all the momentum in the world, and they came out there. And not only did they not take TCU seriously, they had an arrogance about how they were going to approach TCU.
Sure did.
And didn't prepare for the opponent with the respect that the opponent deserved. And they got exposed and ended up losing a game against, when they really probably should have moved on to play Georgia in the national championship game. This is an opportunity to refocus. To Jim Harbaugh's credit, they've made the college football playoff 2 years in a row now, which is very impressive. And now it's, can you finish it? I still have questions about J.J. McCarthy in terms of decision-making in the biggest of games and the biggest of moments. We see the talent, especially throwing the ball downfield and his movement ability. There's a lot of tools there that the NFL would like. I mean, he was a 5-star premier prospect coming out of high school for a reason. But the pick sixes that we saw in the TCU game, the lack of understanding of the moment, those are some of the things we're going to be looking at down the stretch. Now, with all that being said, in terms of a poll for the preseason and what their schedule looks like, absolutely, I think they're the second best team in the country.
Yeah, I do too. I think Georgia and Michigan are the top 2 teams in the country. They're bringing back a lot of talent. And, of course, Georgia does have, actually Georgia lost a lot of talent, but Georgia is stacked. I mean, Georgia kind of reminds me of the Bama's of old, where it's 5-star behind 5-star. But, yeah, Georgia's bringing back a ton of talent. Michigan's bringing back a lot of talent from last year. So, yeah, definitely. I got Georgia, Michigan as my top 2. Alabama at 3. I'm a little weary on this one. What do you guys think about this one, Chris?
You said who?
Bama at 3, man.
Bama at 3.
Bama should be at 3, in my opinion. I think that I don't think that the question mark of at quarterback, I don't think it's that big of a question mark. I think Milroe is the guy until they see any glaring problems that are just too repetitive for them. I think that Bama is going to get back to the basics. I don't think you're going to see a lot of exotic looks. I don't think you're going to see reluctance to actually make changes during the game, during the damn drives if they have to. I think Bama is going to be locked and loaded this year, and I think that they're going to rock and roll. I still think that look, Georgia, you can't take it away. They won two natties back to back. They're ushering in a new quarterback as well. Carson Beck looks good, but at the same time, it is what it is. I think that Bama is still the best team in the SEC right now.
Yeah, even better than Georgia?
I think they're the best team in the SEC right now, and I think that they, by the end of the season, I think they will be the team to beat in the SEC.
So you're saying Bama without Bryce with Jalen Milroe is better than LSU?
Yes.
Yes. All their talent.
Yes. Because to be honest with you, contrary to everybody's belief, Jaden Daniels is just
Surfer Boy's on your ass right now in the comments, by the way.
That's fine, but I'm just saying that LSU, Jaden Daniels is still, he's just as big as a question mark as Jaden Milroe because he's inconsistent at times.
What? What? You said Jaden Daniels is a big.
I said it. He's inconsistent. He's been inconsistent. Just trust me. I'll be right back.
How do you say something so outrageous?
Steven, how you like that lead a comment and bounce? What do you think about Bama, Steven?
I disagree with everything he just said.
Yeah.
I don't even have. I have LSU. I think LSU top to bottom. I think I trust them a little bit more than Bama. My only thing is I don't know. Like I'm not saying that they're gonna. I understand their head-to-head games a little bit different because that is going to be in Tuscaloosa. And they're close, but I think Bama is. I think Georgia and Michigan almost are. Or if we tiered this, are almost like a tier one and cutoff. And I think there's some questions for the next tier of teams. Alabama has way too many questions to me. To sit up here and say that they're better than Georgia after what we've seen from Georgia's program the last 2 years, even with what they lost, they've earned the benefit of the doubt at this point. And quite frankly, if you look at their schedule, where do you even see the landmines? Georgia's schedule is significantly easier than Alabama's schedule.
They got an easy schedule.
Significantly easier. I mean, I don't. Georgia. I mean, I'm not looking at their schedule right now, but I mean, I feel like they're not even going to get challenged until the Tennessee game. So I mean, we got to see there. I just think that Bama's a lot closer to LSU than they are to saying that they're better than Georgia.
I think LSU should be this third or fourth team. I think Bama should come in around 4 or 5, in my opinion. I think LSU should be ahead of them. Like you said, I just think there's too much uncertainty with Bama. I mean, just think like they just lost the best quarterback the school's ever had. I don't think people understand just how great of a quarterback Bryce Young was at that school.
Here we go.
I mean, look, he's a transcendent quarterback.
Transcendent. There you go. Every time he says transcendent, take a drink.
Yeah, he is a transcendent quarterback. The only thing that I will say about Bama is I want to see what Reese is going to do with that offense. Is he going to play to the strengths of Jalen Milroe? Is Milroe going to start this year? I mean, I think he is, but we don't know that yet. But is he going to play to the strengths of Milroe? Is he going to play bully ball and just run the ball like crazy? They got a hell of a running back room. And then if you add the legs of Milroe too as well, who can actually run the ball too as well, he has a really good arm too. I like to equate this to the Bama season when they had Blake Sims. And I think Milroe is a better version of Blake Sims. He's more athletic, he's faster, and he has a better arm than Blake Sims. Bama only lost 2 games that year, and Bama fans were crying because they said it's one of the worst seasons they had. And that span of time, because they lost 2 games by a minimum of points. They got beat by Ohio State in the playoffs that year. And I think Ohio State actually won the playoffs that year. But they got beat by them, and it was a really competitive game. But Milroe's better than Blake Sims. So in saying all that, is Reese going to play up to his strengths? I don't know that yet because it hasn't been proven yet. I do know that Brian Kelly's a hell of a coach, and I think he's going to do wonders at LSU this year. I would have LSU above Alabama right now just because of the uncertainty with Bama. Number 4 is Ohio State. I think I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think the position, the skill position is going to be top tier. I think that defensively in that second year of Glenn Spencer's defense, I think that they have a chance to take even more of a step. I think the X factor for them is not the JT kid so much, but the Jack Sawyer kid. Can he be that DN that they thought that he was going to be?
They thought he was going to be like another Bosa type.
Yeah,
player.
That's what I'm saying. Can he actually? He had a quad. JT had his coming out party last year. You need Jack Sawyer on that other side to be that guy on that other side to shut down that other side and to be the guy that they had all this hype coming out of. That had all this hype coming out of high school. What I'm trying to say about Kyle McCord is this: I'm not trying to say that he's better than Jaden Daniels or anything like that, but I think that in the time that we've seen Kyle McCord, there was a time where CJ Stroud was injured, whatever the case may be. And I know it was Akron, all the rest of those, but he stepped in as a true freshman and looked way better than the redshirt freshman that was there on campus back then, and Jack Miller. He forced him out. It wasn't just the whole off the field issue that he had or whatever the case may be. Kyle McCord was that guy from the get-go. I always thought it would be a smooth transition with both of them for Kyle McCord whenever he was ready to take the reins. I know the spring game didn't look the hottest. There's a lot of quarterbacks, Baker, Kyler didn't look hot in their spring games. They went on to win Heisman's. I know you guys know about that. But for Ohio State, I really do believe that they'll be right up there again. And I think that barring injury to Emeka or Harrison Jr., I think that they have a year. And I think the X factor for them is who's the third wide receiver that steps up. Julian Fleming has been there way too long. He was the guy, number one wide receiver coming out of high school. Right, 2020 or 20? Was it 29? No, because I think he was after
2020, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a dog when he's healthy, though.
Yeah.
It's just that his health has held him back. He's a dog when he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I mean, they have, but they also had like the number one receiver class coming in too with Carnell Tate.
They're stacked.
I mean,
it's ridiculous.
They also with Kyle McCord, we got to remember Kyle McCord was Marvin Harrison Jr.'s high school quarterback.
Yeah.
Oh man,
they played together.
Oh man, just the chemistry. The chemistry there.
That chemistry, yeah, and they've been, Marvin Harrison Jr. has been kind of giddy about, working with Kyle again and that whole thing. Offensively, I will say this: Ryan Day has earned the benefit of the doubt when it comes to quarterback play to me. Although this is the first starting Caucasian quarterback we've seen at Ohio State in like 14 years, which I find interesting. That's just a quick tidbit. I mean, let's be honest, they've had none but brothers at quarterback the last 14 years. Going back to Terrell Pryor. Y'all look it up. They finally have a Caucasian man that won the job. So my question is, can they play the ball in the air on defense? Because they were atrocious to me. Brothers that I thought were good football players like Lathan Ransom that were getting exposed again in the Michigan game in coverage where they were literally throwing 50-50 balls deep downfield, and these brothers were getting cooked all the time. And the Georgia game too. The Georgia game, they were getting mossed in the playoffs. I need to know if Ohio State can cover, because this has been a problem in their biggest spots the last few years. But
Steven, that's what I'm trying to say. Year two in that Glenn Spencer's defense, trust me, we saw it in its full glory. Whenever at OSU, his last season there, we saw statistically how good they were, all the rest of that, yada yada yada. Whenever the players click, or whenever they get it, it's a nasty defense to deal with. It really is. And I think that they're going to be better in the secondary. I do, simply because I think they've had a year in this scheme. I really do think they're going to be better. They have the talent, so there's no excuse for them not to have a better year in year two.
That's true.
Oh, Jim. Yeah.
I'm with Steven on this one. You got to get Ryan Day the benefit.
Jim Knowles. I keep saying Glenn Spencer. I meant Jim Knowles. My fault. Yeah.
You got to get Ryan Day the benefit of the doubt when it comes to quarterbacks. He's done nothing but dish out good guys to the league when it comes to position. And let's be honest, in the Big Ten, the talent that Ohio State has, they're pretty stacked up there, man. It's going to be like a two-man race between them and Michigan, I think, this year. And also Penn State. Penn State's coming on later on in the process here. But I think those three teams are going to be the ones that are going to decide what the hell is going to happen in that conference.
Who do y'all think is the most overrated? Because, I mean, now
let's
kind of get
USC.
Picture on this thing.
USC.
Hey, and can you make the screen bigger?
Let me see if I can make it bigger. Let me see. Let me see. Give me a second.
If you want to, do the Zoom thing or whatever.
Yeah,
it's a little small.
The Texas education, boy.
Hey, man.
There we go.
There you go. No, I tell you said USC. I think the most overrated team this year is going to be Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be that team that has probably a disappointing year.
Hey, at least you're consistent, Chris. I like that. You think Joe Milton stinks, and you're picking Tennessee to be overrated. That's right on brand.
Consistent. I say USC, man. I think USC, man, they can do they can score a lot. The defense sucks. I'm just not sold on it, man. I'm a big fan of Caleb. I love Caleb's game, but as far as just that team making it to the next level, I just don't see it happening. I don't see them as the number 6 team in the country. What's that, 6, right? Yeah, I don't see them.
6.
Yeah, I see them more as like top 15 team than a top 16 in the country.
I think that's interesting you say that, Nino, because if you have USC this high, you're saying they're going to win the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And the Pac-12 may rest in sweet peace, because it's really sad what's happened, and maybe on a future episode we can talk a little bit more about it. But this year in the Pac-12, very strong again. Just like last year, they were very, very strong. But what we saw with USC is when it got serious against teams like Utah that had those guys up front, and Bear Bryant, you mean Bear Alexander. When Bear Alex, that's why they went out and got guys like Bear Alexander to help them in the trenches. Yes.
That's one player. It's one player.
But what we saw when they played teams like Utah, Oregon should be even better in the trenches this year. We got to see how they match up, because it's going to be tough. If you're saying that USC is the best team, I don't know who's coming out the Pac-12.
Even Washington coming back. They're bringing back a stacked team this year.
Washington's bringing back a very, very stacked team, which is interesting too, because we played them we played a very competitive Alamo Bowl game against them, and those teams look, pretty identical to where, minus the recruits and training.
Child, please.
Yeah.
Stop getting on here and being disrespectful to our audience. Do not get on here and lie. Because that
lie about what? What am I lying about?
Jonathan Brooks coming out party. Jonathan Brooks is a bum. I said it.
Who?
Now, Nick.
We didn't say anything about Jonathan Brooks. What are you talking about, Chris?
I told you he's a bum. I'm just saying that. Hey,
we weren't
scroll
talking
down
about
a little
Jonathan
bit.
Brooks.
Scroll down a little bit.
Who you
Chris.
Don't go too far. That number 12 team right there.
You guys, please start recording this, because he's about to indict himself. Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna leave y'all alone. I was just say that number 12 team. I was like, I don't know, but keep going, because I think. Let me see. Let's see. Go back up, because I'm
right. Last year, JT Sanders was a bum. The year before, you said Xavier Worthy was a bum.
I already know. Hey, look, if you want me to go,
and now Jonathan Brooks is
Jonathan
one.
Brooks.
Oh, hey guys, I got to go.
Put me on the screen. Jonathan Brooks is a bum.
14. Utah at 14, I think, is an underrated team. Utah's going to make a lot of talent. I like Utah. They're a tough team, man. Their coach is something else. They just play damn good ball. They're very disciplined. They're bringing
back Jackson at running back.
Yeah, Jackson at running back, Cam Rising at quarterback, man. I mean, they're just bringing back a fundamentally sound team. They got a good defense. I love Utah and what they do. I think Utah might be a little underrated.
We're gonna learn a lot about Utah and Oregon in the first 2 games of the season, because Utah plays Florida at home. And then that's Stephen. That's going to be a great game for you, because you're not that high on Billy. And then Oregon's second game of the season is a night game in Lubbock.
Yeah,
that's going to be
that's right.
Fun.
That's right. Look, don't say who else.
Yeah,
that's going to be a fun ass game.
Stephen, TCU and Kansas State, I think, are overrated.
Now, I was going to ask y'all about this. I saw a poll today, and it said that the best team in Texas this year is TCU. I want to know how y'all feel about that.
Nah, I think they're overrated.
TCU's overrated.
For one thing, TCU doesn't have the depth of normal teams, but you lose Quentin Johnson, you lose a lot of your defense last year. I just don't think they got the depth to step back and come back with another first-round guy that's a wide receiver, another first or second-round guy that's a cornerback. Do they have that guy sitting behind? They don't, because if they did, they'd be playing in the field last year.
I mean,
think
about the weapons they lost. I mean, and now they hit it in the portal. Let's be fair.
Yeah,
they hit it in the portal, but I mean, look at the NFL buzz around Kendre Miller. with the Saints. I mean, we
Yeah.
we forget about
It's good.
him not even being able to go in the national championship game, right? And
Yeah.
the impact that he had. That's a guy that they lost, one of their best players, on top of Quentin Johnston and all the but fifth-year seniors that they talked about, which were so key to their team. One team that's not on here that I think was underrated, in my opinion, is South Carolina.
Yeah,
South
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve.
Nah,
Carolina to me should have been ranked.
Bro, I did
Carolina,
not
they
realize Texas A&M was 25.
So South Carolina, Nino,
Yeah.
they're the second most. So they would be like the 27th
27th.
team.
I would put South Carolina over A&M.
That's crazy. That's crazy, Nick.
What?
No, that's not crazy. I'm just laughing because he said A&M. That's all. That's what
saying. I would put South Carolina over A&M.
Wow. Hey, just to kind of jump back real quick. TCU didn't Sonny Dykes come out and say that he thought this was the best that he was going to have a better wide receiver group than he did last year?
He's supposed to say that.
I mean, yeah, but I was like, I was like,
those guys that be bums.
I was
Think
talking
about
to
how
my wife,
good-
and I was like, hey man, I was like, that's hard to say because he's replacing a lot of athleticism and height out there, and the fact that you're replacing Garrett Riley, and we all know what that Lincoln Riley system.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
Yeah.
You're replacing Garrett Riley and not half their games. That's an exaggeration. Guys, how many games did TCU play last year that were coin flips in the last 2 minutes of the game?
Probably 6.
I mean,
probably like 5 or 6. Easy.
I mean, they really had the fortune on their hand, and they had an elite offensive coordinator who's gone to Clemson, which is why I'm higher on Clemson now because they got a Garrett Riley. I think it's interesting. I see a lot of people saying UTSA. I know in the Sports Illustrated rankings, they had UTSA in their top 25 as well as ESPN. So a lot of people feel like UTSA should be a top 25 team as well. I've seen that consistently.
Man, you know what, though, Steven? They had a lot of close games. I mean, TCU. Besides the Colorado game, they won by, I think, 2 scores, 3 scores. Tarleton State won by about 5 scores. Against Oklahoma, they won by 31 points. Other than that, the rest of them are pretty close. Yeah. Iowa State, they won by about 50 points.
I can't believe they have Iowa at basically at 26. How many? 169. Oh, is that votes or what is that?
That's votes.
Yeah. The total votes.
Crazy.
Yeah. And to Texas,
that's more than
Homer's point.
They put up. Go ahead.
I wanted to bring up Homer's point about Duggan. Max Duggan is a classic example. And I'm glad he mentioned this. If you think about it, Sonny Dykes gets there, right? Garrett Riley's there. They named Chandler Morris the starter. Chandler Morris started that Colorado, right? And he went down with injury. Yeah. Max Duggan was supposedly the best backup in college football, right? And that's what he said, and he proved that. He went on to have a Heisman, contender and did all those things. But a lot of that juice and that toughness, you can't practice what Max Duggan gave you. That's stuff
that's true.
Guys,
just came out in the game.
Guys,
you can't practice what he was doing.
Guys, let's be real. Chandler Morris is gonna make y'all eat those words. He's a dog. Mark my words. Chandler Morris
is good, but we're talking about. Dude, we're talking about.
I'm not talking about it. Yes, he had a great year last year. Finally, whoop-de freaking do. He was in college football for 12 years. He should have had a freaking good year. Chandler Morris is a dog.
Can Chandler Morris make that run that Max Duggan made where he looked like he ran a 4.1? He looked like in the Kansas State game when he ran up the sideline. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm about to say, don't do it, Steve.
Chandler Morris can do that?
Don't do it. Yes.
He can summon the powers of the Caucasus Mountains and run down the sideline like that. That's what you're
Chandler
saying?
Morris take off, boy, like a bat out of hell. I'm trying to tell you. Hey.
I can't buy it.
Don't disrespect, Steven. Come on, man.
I can't buy it. All right.
Bro,
So
like literally, you look. If you was a quarterback coach, my God, I would steer clear of you. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way.
we're gonna see.
Hey, Chicken said he gonna look like Bake out there.
He said
That's
gonna
what
look like a
Chicken
little
said.
baker. Right? All
I'm
right.
trying to tell
We're
you.
gonna see.
I'm trying to.
We're gonna see.
You better jump on the bandwagon right now while you can.
All right.
I'm not saying he's trash. He won the job last year, Chris.
He did win the job,
He got injured.
but his team went to the national championship without his ass.
He might be another JT Daniels. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying, man.
It's gonna be interesting. One thing about Iowa that I want to talk about prior to us getting off, man, is I think the voters got a lot of confidence in Cade McNamara. So him transferring over there. I'm not sold on him. I never have been. I never have been. But the voters are sold on him, and maybe in the system that Iowa runs, maybe he can be a difference maker. I don't know. Iowa's a pretty run heavy team, even though last year they didn't run the ball a lot. They only had they had 420 carries last year, but their average per carry actually sucked across the team at 2.9 yards. And they had some pretty putrid quarterback play. I think the starting quarterback only had 1,700 yards and started every game last year.
Nah, Homer. I like you and I actually respect you. I respect the hell out of you. Don't you ever why we gotta bring up Ellinger, man? I get the Rojo stuff, but come on, Ellinger, man. Bum.
Get out of here.
Damn bum.
Get out of here, Chris. All right, folks, man. It's 8:45. We went on for about an hour and 45 minutes. So I think we can give a rundown here.
Hey, real quick. The Horns.
South Carolina, North Carolina to start the season is an excellent game, by the way.
It is.
The Horns Down podcast is back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Go ahead, get ready, set your dials, be over there. Y'all already know we're gonna talk everything.
Is Seth back?
Well, and we getting it, huh?
Is Seth back? We had some people doing wellness checks on Seth. They said they hadn't seen him since the Red River.
No, that's not right. That's not true. We saw him during softball season.
Hey, you know what? You know what? I'm gonna let y'all live right now. But like I said, the Horns Down podcast tomorrow, it's back. I know y'all want to come. Y'all been missing it. Y'all been waiting for it. You know what I'm saying? I've been on break with the baby and all of that. But these two right here, y'all some jackasses. I just want to let y'all know that.
Hey, man, Seth knows number love, man. He was my dude. All right, man, we out, man. Horns up.
Hey, put Boomer in the chat if you like the podcast tonight, man. Put